Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Coach's Corner. As always, it's your boys Clayton and Justin. Coach Crucial. Coach, how you doing, buddy?
Could be better. My Vikings weren't able to pull it off, but you know what? It's still in the hunt. It's still good football, so can't complain.
Anything can happen. Any given Sunday, right?
Exactly.
That's why we play.
It's a good week to lose going into Thanksgiving, so I can eat my feelings away.
Yeah, that's right. That's called comfort food, buddy.
Exactly.
That's all that is. That's all that is comfort
Start
food.
looking like a line coach again.
You got to represent, right? Hashtag no sleeves in the cold.
Got to play the part, man.
That's right. That's right. They're not going to respect you if you don't look like one of them. You know what I'm saying? That's what, like, sometimes when I'm out there with the quarterbacks and the receivers, I got to throw a couple just to let them know Coach still got it. And they go, okay, Coach did play in college. We see how this goes. I'm like, that's right.
Exactly.
Why would I make that up, right? Speaking about throwing deep bombs, though, right? Taysom Hill, the Saints versus the Falcons. What a game.
Oh, you betcha.
We saw Taysom Hill. That was kind of a shock to some people to see that he got the nod in favor of Teddy Bridgewater, Jameis Winston, right? I think some people really expected him to just resume his gimmicky role and Jameis go under center. But Sean Payton came out and was a man of his word. Said, a lot of people forget in the offseason they signed this guy for a first-round tender. What that means is if they don't sign him, they lose that pick, right? They sign him for the money in return of that. They were, I believe, $16 million. That's not chump change, right?
By no means.
Sean Payton believes in Taysom Hill, loves Taysom Hill. We've seen this Taysom Hill experiment, and he cut it loose. And a lot of people are wanting to talk about how kind of well he did. The thing I really was focusing on, and it's a thing I've talked about not only on the fantasy show with East West, I've talked about it privately with several people, and I've talked about it on here. Sean Payton has hindered Drew Brees. And people look at that and they go, what? No, Sean Payton's an offensive genius, this, that. And it's like, no. Look at the play calling. Look at the average the average depth of the target for wide receivers running routes for Drew Brees. It's shallows, it's crossers, it's slants, and it's screens, okay? They're not giving Drew Brees the opportunity to do what he does best, and that is get in the shotgun, feel comfortable, read the zone defense that's there, and play football. What's made Drew Brees? Sean Payton hasn't given him that opportunity, and that's very frustrating to see Taysom Hill come in and make all these throws. Now, granted, is Drew Brees able to make a 60-yard throw at this stage of his career? No, but we've seen along the season him make several on-target 40-yard throws in stride. So when Drew Brees does come back to this offense, I just want to see Sean Payton get away from this gimmicky crap he's doing and turn Drew Brees loose. Combine what he did with Taysom Hill under center and what Drew Brees does, and mix that play calling together. And then you're going to see a Saints team that's, in my opinion, unbeatable, where with the defense, when you factor in who's under center, when you factor in who they have catching passes, running the ball, and throwing the ball, I don't see anybody in the NFC picking them off. So really, as I keep saying, Sean Payton is what is holding this team back, truthfully. What are your thoughts on that?
For me, I think it's a little of both of them holding each other back, and I'll explain, obviously. I think that Drew Brees has always been a person that, our quarterback that likes the kind of older adage of, you never go broke taking a profit. I think that he kind of likes the higher completion percentage throws, West Coast style, if you will, of getting your playmakers the ball and letting them kind of do stuff with it afterwards. I mean, you can go back to Marcus Colston, Meacham, and those receivers, Henderson, way back when. There's Lance Moore. You can go to a bunch of these guys that, I think that he's always like getting the ball out quick with slants and hitches and whatnot, and letting them kind of make something happen with it, and then go into double moves as soon as they start biting, or take a shot on a post or a go route, just calculated. But I think that that Sean Payton's kind of gotten away from taking those shots more often, rather wanting to just methodically move the ball downfield. And when he wants a big play, he automatically goes to Taysom Hill. Where I do agree with you. I think that Drew Brees can still sling the rock, like we said, maybe not a 60-yard throw, multiple times a game. But I think that to remain consistent, it would make sense for them to start taking some more shots with Drew Brees because he still has the arm. And if anything, even if it's a 40-yard pass, like we said, I mean, he still has, accuracy. And it's not just looking at it statistically because, like we said, he tends to like to throw those higher completion percentage type throws, so if you're looking purely at the stats, you're going to be like, well, yeah, when you're throwing the ball for 2 yards, 5 yards, whatever it is, you're going to have a good completion percentage. But I'm talking about looking at the film and looking at the actual accuracy of all of his throws. They're all still very, very accurate. So I would personally agree with you. I think they need to go back to throwing the ball downfield a little bit with Drew Brees. You can still use Taysom Hill. I mean, by all means, yeah, he's under contract, so you might as well use him at calculated points of the game.
Right, and I think the biggest thing is you see the usage of Taysom Hill will stall drives. You'll see them, they're driving the ball down the field, they are taking shots, and all of a sudden you bring him in on a second and long quarterback power, quarterback sweep, zone read, whatever it might be. Well, if he gets back to the line of scrimmage for 2 yards, well, guess what? Now you roll Drew Brees out there and say, okay, Drew, do what you do best, bail us out, that we've seen time and time again. And we've seen him put on the cape so many times and be Superman for this Saints team and just carry this franchise that it's really frustrating for me to hear people dog. This isn't Tom Brady and Bruce Arians in Tampa Bay right now, where Tom has gone one for his last 22 attempts downfield. No, this is a guy that is competing, but he's being hindered, whether you want to attribute it to play calling, whatever you want to attribute it to. He's not getting that opportunity, and so people are automatically saying, well, he can't do it. No, he's doing it whenever he gets the opportunity, but the opportunity for him to do it is no longer there. And I think that's what people miss.
People tend to forget that Taysom Hill was a good college quarterback. His biggest problem is every single year he had a season-ending injury.
Right.
And he would play really good. I mean, and it wasn't just against, lesser competition. I mean, he knocked off some Power 5 programs when he was there. But the injury bug would just always get him. 4 years of season-ending injuries there. So he was a good quarterback in college. Just it's good to see him have this chance in the NFL.
Yeah, and nothing against Taysom Hill. It's just frustrating to see the things that are being said about Drew Brees, or rather unfairly. So I've had that monkey on my back for a while, so it feels kind of good to get it off and express that. But you want to talk about quarterback play and some of it being bad. Tell me a little bit about that Brown Eagles game, right?
I highlighted this one just because they were both struggling teams that are just trying to get back on track. And one of the teams is going to have, granted, the game could have ended in a tie, so, okay, but chances are somebody was going to win this game. And for the Browns, they were able to play all three phases of the game. I mean, they had pretty good special teams play, but their defense showed up. Olivier Vernon, who, for a while at least in Miami, when he got traded to the Giants, everyone was expecting really, really big things out of him. Then I don't remember if it was last offseason or the offseason before, the Browns acquired him in a trade with the offensive lineman, Zeidler, I believe, Kevin Zeidler, the guard. And he wasn't doing a whole lot across from Myles Garrett. But finally this game, he had 3 sacks. And then they had the pick 6 from their linebacker. Baker Mayfield didn't score a touchdown, but he didn't turn the ball over either. Chubb had a 100-yard game. And also Baker Mayfield was able to spread the ball out to multiple different receivers. It wasn't just, okay, well, now that Odell's hurt, we got to force feed it to Landry. So they were able to run the ball, and they were able to use their entire receiving core. as well as their tight ends to kind of spread the ball out and keep the Eagles defense honest. And then Carson Wentz, it's been the story of the year. He hasn't been able to protect the football, 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. And I mean, granted, like we said, the offensive line isn't the offensive line they were planning on beginning of the season with. Injuries are part of the game of football. And but I mean, he was under constant pressure all game long. It was really starting to get out of hand. They were able to cut the deficit a little bit, but ultimately 22-17 final.
The thing that's most disappointing or worrisome, I guess, if I'm an Eagles fan, whenever I look at an evaluation of Carson Wentz and saying what's going wrong, he's getting through his read. He's too nonchalant out there, right? On the pick 6 you mentioned, okay, he goes 1, 2, check down, but he threw the check down like he's throwing, routes in 7-on-7 to his running back in high school. I mean, just a lollipop ball out there, floated it for him. As quarterback coaches or offensive coordinators, you always say the halfback flare right there is one of the hardest balls to throw because you're not only leading a guy out, you're leading him up the field too. So it's not exactly an easy throw, but the air he put under it, this is a throw that we expect the starting quarterback to make and put some zip on it. Like, yeah, I understand he had a guy in his face and he kind of tried to, but there was just too much over it. I don't know if he was trying to throw it away and didn't get enough. That's almost what it looked like is, hey, I'm going to throw this ball away. But at the same time, I can't give him that because he led him perfectly. He just put way too much air under it, let the Browns running back or linebacker Tahi get under it and score, which ended up winning them the game, right? You could if you wanted to, attribute this loss for Carson Wentz to that turnover. He's got 14 interceptions and leads the league. It's just not getting any better for him. And at some point you have to put injuries aside, like you said, and say, okay, this is a problem. This isn't injury related. This is a Carson Wentz problem.
Yeah. So at that point, I guess 2 points here. One will be a hot take that I'll sit on here for a second. But if you're Doug Peterson and you know that you have injuries on your O-line, why don't they take more of the Saints approach to the passing game and try those quicker balls rather than longer developing plays? And I mean, you hate to have do this at this point in Carson Wentz development, but I mean, do you only have them look at play one side of the field for certain plays to cut down on the amount of reads that he has to go through? Give him kind of just 2 reads, and if it's not there, take off with it, throw the check down or throw it away. And then the second one is, it's a hot take, but you're still technically in the race for the division. We've talked about this all season. I mean, the NFC East is still wide open. Do you play Jalen Hurts, who's more mobile, kind of like, the whole Bears with Foles versus Trubisky? Or do you stick with Carson Wentz? I know he's your $100 million man, but I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's too far of a stretch to say that Doug Peterson might be coaching for his job. And if you want to do what's best for your team and try to get them in the playoffs, do you make that change to Jalen Hurts?
Well, so 2 things to your point. So first, whenever you're talking about splitting the field in half, I think that's a big thing they could do to just get him in rhythm and get him comfortable is a big thing you could do even at the high school level. Run sprint outs. You move the pocket. You had a bad offensive line. You say, okay, you're not going to be able to line up and come straight at my quarterback. We're going to move the pocket. I'm going to move my quarterback. I'm going to give him a 5-yard, a 10-yard easy completion, nice little pitch and catch, see what happens. What happens whenever, as a quarterback, you throw the ball and you see it caught by your receiver, you are instilled with confidence. And every time you get 2, 3, 4 in a row, even going forward, you may miss one or there may be a drop or you miss a read. You look back to those early completions and you go, I can do this because I've already done it. So that is a legitimate option they should look at. Just a nice little – it doesn't have to be a fancy little RPO, make it a complicated read. It's just a straight, I'm going to catch the ball, I'm going to run to my right, which is easier for a right-handed quarterback. Got to get my shoulder turn. I'm going to have good mechanics, and I'm going to throw a nice little 5-yard out. I'm going to get the completion. I'm going to feel good about myself. Okay, we're ahead of the sticks. Let's go. Maybe I can run the ball now. Okay, whatever it goes from there. But you get Carson feeling good about himself going forward on a drive. Second, I wouldn't bench him, and here's why. If you bench him, you're probably breaking his confidence to the point where it's not going to come back should you need him. Okay. Or next season, you're breaking him. Number two, you're really going to find out what Carson Wentz is made of down the stretch here. Okay. You need to lay it out for him. You need to say, Carson, we're banking on you. If you can't win this division when we're all 3-7, you won't win it when the Cowboys, are trying to go 10-6, 11-5 to finish the year. You won't do it then. Okay. And this is the most winnable division in football right now. All the teams have 3 wins. When's the last time we've said that, right? It's insane. So you're looking at that, and I think, on one hand, I see the point of, okay, let's find out what we have in Jalen Hurts. On the other hand, let's find out if Carson Wentz is our guy. Next year, guess what? We miss on quarterback this year. That's okay. We've got Jalen Hurts. We give Jalen Hurts a shot this year. We use the pick that we've got that's high, build up on the team. Jalen Hurts isn't the guy. We grab quarterback next year. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could look at it, but from my perspective, that's the way I see things.
Well, talking about young quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts, let's talk about quarterbacks who have had their chance to shine with Drew Lock and Tua. What'd you see from the Broncos and Dolphins game?
I haven't seen anything developmentally wise different from Drew Lock. I saw a good Denver team that we know has been a good team. They've just underperformed. They were a heavy underdog, whether you checked Vegas, DraftKings, FanDuel, whoever you looked at. Nobody expected them to win, including me, one of the biggest Broncos fans there is. I'm such a Broncos fan to the point where I actually hate the Broncos sometimes because they just ruin my entire Sunday. So I didn't think they'd win. And the reason is because that Dolphins defense is legit. Brian Flores is doing a fantastic job rebuilding that team. Tua was playing some good ball. Critique of, I've mentioned to you, has he faced adversity? So it's kind of a head scratcher, right? To see him face adversity, have a chance to lead this team to a victory, a comeback victory against a middling team that they should be beating, and Flores pulled him. You just committed to this guy and said that he's going to be the future. You picked him over Fitzpatrick, the proven veteran, and that doesn't. Just like we just talked about with Carson Wentz, what's that doing for his development? This isn't a guy that faced adversity at Alabama, and when he did, he lost. He lost in the national title game, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he came back and threw the one pass. We all know about the one pass. That's who put 2 on the map. But he lost to Clemson, right? I don't get what we're really looking at here. He lost to LSU and Joe Burrow. I couldn't think of that. So that's what, you give this kid a chance and you pull him. That was an opportunity for him to learn and grow. And now he's going to think back on that negatively. Last time I was in this situation, I got yanked. And I think that looms. I mean, do you agree, disagree? What are you thinking there?
I agree. I mean, I've said this to you before. I am a fan of, as soon as you make the decision to go with a guy, you got to stick with him. And that if you have your original starter and you make the switch, you stick with it. You should never go back and forth. That just creates unnecessary controversy. I mean, not even right. Bill Walsh. I mean, Bill Walsh had Steve Young and Joe Montana finally as coaches at a coaching meeting. It's like you have to pick one and stick with them, because it shows maybe a little bit of doubt starts to creep in as far as the team's concerned. Does coach believe in either of these guys? Can either of these guys lead us to victory? And whatnot. So you just gotta stick with the guy. There are going to be growing pains with any young quarterback, and it's best to just take him out because you're rebuilding it. It's not like they're necessarily contending for a Super Bowl this year, but the right. goal is, when you started this rebuild and you started shipping guys off, was that our Super Bowl window is still it's being developed, but you're planning on competing for Super Bowls next year, the year after, 3 years from now. And so go right. through those growing pains now to where Tua's playing, if he is meant to play in this league, which I think he is, but if he is, he's playing, good football 2-3 years from now, when you're really hoping that window is wide open.
I will give, like you were saying, you got to pick one and guys creep in. Quarterback is the one position where everybody looks to you. Mm-hmm. Okay, you have to have all the answers.
Especially if you're a first-round pick.
Right. And I can't tell you, well, I mean, drawing on experience, I can't tell you how many times we said, okay, Ram I 36 power on one. Ready? Okay. We break the huddle. Guys go. You know how many guys turn around and immediately go, hey, Clayton, was it on one or two? And we're like, all right, guys. Okay. I said it twice, but it's on one. It's okay, though. But then you'll get the lineman go, hey, was it 36 power or 35 power? And you got to go, it's going to the right. You're pulling on this one, buddy, okay? And so you got all these things going on in your head. The last thing a quarterback needs, especially one in the freaking National Football League, is to wonder, if I don't complete this pass, am I going out of the game, right? You don't need that extra stress. So that is the one thing I will credit to Drew Lock, though, the last thing on the Broncos. I could spend 12 hours just talking about that whole show. But Drew Lock has inflappable confidence, and I will give him credit for that. No matter how many times he throws an interception, no matter how many times he fumbles, no matter how many times he gets hit, he doesn't always stand in the pocket and throw with good mechanics. He doesn't step into his throws, but he does mentally believe, I can lead this team to victory. And that's not something you can say for every quarterback out there that are that mentally strong. I do hope Drew Lock figures it out, and I hope this was I hope this is a block that we can use to build on. I still don't think Drew Lock may be the quarterback of the future for the Denver Broncos, but I'm holding out hope that maybe this lights a fire under him. Like, okay, we can beat good teams. We could be a good team because that's what this is. That's what the whole frustration that people are having with the Denver Broncos is this is a talented roster that injuries have deprived us of seeing the full potential. But you look at the Steelers game, the Tennessee game, now the Dolphins game, and 3/4 of the Raiders game, beating the Chargers, you've seen flashes of really good football from this Denver Broncos team. So to see them fall on their face sometimes is really frustrating.
Speaking of flashes, I mean, we've seen the Raiders go into KC and beat the Chiefs, and we almost saw that on Sunday night when the Raiders just narrowly lost to the Chiefs, and it was Patrick Mahomes and Mahomes magic. Overall it was a great game. I don't think you could have asked for a better game, but if you talk to Raiders fans, it was a good effort, but effort doesn't, always lead to a increase in the win column. But you scored and you gave Mahomes too much time. I mean, there's certain guys that, if there's still time on the clock, it's too much time. Mahomes is one of those guys. You could argue that Rodgers throughout his career has been one of those guys. Tom Brady's been one of those. Brees, you name it. There are guys that you can't give them. You can't give them any time at the end of games.
Right.
And that was just one of those cases. I think that overall, the Raiders defense played better than what I expected. I think that Trayvon Mullen pick in the red zone was huge because not only were they denied a touchdown, they were denied any points at all, and you got the ball back. And picking off Mahomes is a rare thing to do, seemingly. But especially in the red zone, he's generally a guy who takes care of the football in the red zone, and you build confidence through that defense, and then if you're able to establish that run, which it was there. It wasn't probably there as much as John Gruden would have liked it to have been, but Carr I think was 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. He's having a really good year. He's probably having, statistically, I want to say maybe one of the best years of his career. And there's still a lot of football left to be played, but this game had, lots of playoff implications. I think both teams are going to make the playoffs. Obviously the Chiefs and the Raiders, I think, will make the playoffs as well, but it's a division game. It's definitely one of those ones where, records aside, you need to play your best football. And I think both teams played pretty good football, but just ultimately Mahomes had too much time at the end.
Yeah, if on both sides of the coin, if you're a Chiefs fan, you're looking at there, you're saying, okay, great win. We could play tight football games because sometimes we see this Chiefs team not have to do that and see what they're mentally made of. Mm-hmm. Congratulations, you guys won another tight game. You guys will be in the playoffs and you will be contenders once again. On the flip side, though, if you're a Raiders fan, I got good news for you. It's very hard to beat a team 3 times in a row, right? Why is that? Because you beat them twice. They've got 2 losses worth of film to say, this is what we did this time. This is what we did the last time. We're going to come up with something different the third time. Okay, now you've split the series. Now you're both going to make tweaks. I think that plays in favor of the Raiders, though, because they've had the answer for everything the Chiefs have done. And I don't know if the Chiefs' defense is going to have an answer up front to create pressure on Jacobs. And Carr has been so aggressive and so efficient. I think this plays in favor of the Raiders for whatever – because John Gruden's got stuff in his back pocket knowing that he'd probably see this team again. And I think that plays entirely in favor of the Raiders. So Raiders fans,
I think Gruden has
chill out.
Has the Chiefs number a little bit. Like they kind of have the recipe on what it takes to beat the Chiefs.
They've got the attitude we could beat the Chiefs, and that's number one. That's the most important thing you can have. Okay, talent aside, scheme aside, you have to believe that you can execute the plan. If I go out there and I call a dive, I have to know that my guys are going to run the dive. My guys have to know, okay, we need a yard. Can we get a dive out of this? If you don't think so, you're never going to get it. Even if nobody lines up in the A gap, right? You're not going to get the dive because your guys don't believe it. I think the Raiders believe they could beat the Chiefs because they've already done it.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of dive, just the entire NFC East has just taken a dive this year, man. But Thanksgiving always means Cowboy football. And so we have the Washington football team versus the Cowboys. What are your thoughts?
Man, I can't tell you I don't have the words, and I think I've said this actually before, how incredible it is that Alex Smith is playing football right now. And not only
playing good football.
He's playing good football. It's not like he's just trotting out there for a moral victory to tell his kids one day, hey, your dad came back from almost dying. No, he's torching some teams. This last week, of course, it wasn't exactly a torching, but he still got a victory, his first quarterback win as a starting quarterback since returning from injury. This would be one of the most incredible things in the history of football if Alex Smith comes back from literally almost losing his leg and dying to lead a team that was considered to be a bottom 5 roster in the NFL to the playoffs, and he's got that opportunity. He's got that opportunity to get his own Disney movie out of this, right? Yeah. I mean, the Cowboys are coming on. I think they're going to do it. If I could make a prediction on one game, I think the Washington football team beats the Cowboys simply because I think the Cowboys are coming off such a high, beating that hot Vikings team that they weren't supposed to beat in a tight game. I don't know if they could repeat that performance mentally to beat a Washington team that they're supposed to beat. I don't know if Andy Dalton's got it in him.
Well, speaking of kind of the formerly Redskins, now Washington football team, had another quarterback that kind of had, the same exact injury in Joe Theismann. I remember coming across this and thinking it was kind of strange about how similar they were. They were both broken right tibia and fibia. They happened the same day on November 18th. Same location, same yard line, same final score. Lawrence Taylor, 3-time defensive of the year player. J.J. Watt, 3 times of the year. A defensive player of the year. And both their left tackles, Trent Williams and Joe Jacoby, were off the field due to injury. So just kind of an interesting piece of information. Same day, same yard line, same field, same final score. Both 3-time defensive player of the year, and both of their Pro Bowl left tackles were out due to injury. But back to
eerie.
Yeah. Back to the football side of this. The Cowboys, they played well against my Vikings. They exposed the young secondary, and as Mike Zimmer put it, I think some of the younger secondary players were kind of, feeling their oats, as he put it. And it's still CeeDee Lamb. It's still Amari Cooper. It's still, who's the other guy?
Michael Gallup.
Yeah, Michael Gallup. And Schultz is a good tight end, too. They still have Zeke Elliott. They still have Pollard. They still have a good team. And Kirk Cousins played well. Dalvin Cook played well. I mean, Kirk Cousins had 3 touchdowns, no picks. QBR was one of the best ones of his career. 300 yards plus passing. And they still lost the game because of the defense. And I think that – so basically what I'm getting at is I think that the Cowboys, I think, have a false sense of security right now. I mean, which can lead to one of two things. It leads into actual confidence because you start stringing together wins, or as soon as you play another opponent, which this one is a division opponent, against a quarterback that's playing well and a very, very good defensive front seven against a very weak Cowboys offensive line, the false sense of confidence, you go into the game with the highest of highs, and, maybe by halftime you're like, whoa, guys, it's we're down, or it's a close game, and doubt starts to creep in, or it forces you to come together even more and win. Do I think they have the talent to still win? Yes. And I think they started to show it. Zeke Elliott had his first 100-yard game of the year, I believe. This was his only 100-yard game. And if they can run the ball that well, you just saw, Andy Dalton doesn't have to do a whole lot besides just manage the game, make the easy reads to 3 legit receivers, 2 pretty good running backs, and a pretty good tight end. And also, when you're running the ball, your defense isn't on the field. The defense is definitely one of the weaker points of this team. So, can they win like this? Sure, but I think it'll be a good matchup.
Yeah, you barely want to give the edge to the Cowboys, number one. Obviously, you always think that the Cowboys – we have kind of this myth in our head that the Cowboys always win on Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah. Not
because
they have
against
my Vikings.
Right. So you kind of think – okay, the Cowboys should have this from a talent standpoint too. But I think what's kind of going under the radar is I'm going to call it the Mike McCarthy factor. I don't think they respect him. I don't think he respects his team. I know he doesn't respect this team because he lied talking about watching film on this team. And then he come out and laughed and said, I didn't watch film on these guys. Are you serious? Ron Rivera is notorious for getting his guys to play hard and getting the most out of, guys battling cancer, still came to work every day, never. I think that's going to go a long way. I do think the Washington football team beats the Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving.
Speaking of Ron Rivera, I am a Vikings fan and a Hawkeye fan, but outside of that, I like to follow various careers of coaches. I love Mac Brown. And one of those coaches is Ron Rivera, just because you saw at his, exit press conference with Carolina, just how much he meant to all the players, the front office and whatnot. And, when he would have, conversations with players, I don't remember which player it was, but one of them was about to become a father. And one of the first people that player called was Ron Rivera. And Ron was just as happy and as excited as the player was that, he was about to enter fatherhood. So it just goes to speak to the man that Riverboat Ron is. And, he's definitely a guy that, I always pull for. Except for when he plays the Vikings, then I can't. But he's always a guy that you've always had a lot of love and respect for, and we need more people like that in all sports, and even outside of sports, just good people like that. You can never get enough of.
Right. No, I agree. Obviously, whichever way it goes, it's probably going to be a low-scoring affair. But I wouldn't expect that from the Bills versus Chargers game.
No. You have 2 quarterbacks here that are simply just going to light it up. That's what I have in my notes. It's just 2 quarterbacks that are going to light it up. Josh Allen's having a great year. We've talked about him many times on this show. But also, Justin Herbert's having a good year in his own right. And the wins aren't going to show up. A lot of close games. But kind of like we talked about a few weeks back, the Seahawks at the end of the games have found ways to win games at that point. Now, it maybe not so much, but the Chargers would always find ways to lose games. But I think for Chargers fans, they can at least rest assured that they have their guy essentially right now. I think it's going to come down to defense. And right now I trust the Chargers defense a little bit more. I do think that I'm going to have to go with Buffalo here just because all around I think they are the better team. But don't be surprised if Herbert and the Chargers give them a ball game. And keep in mind, they've done all this without Austin Eckler offensively, and then defensively losing a guy like Derwin James is a hard guy to overcome. But like we said, there's injuries every week in the NFL. But those ones have definitely kind of played a big role into kind of where they're at. I think that I like Joshua Kelly coming out of UCLA in the draft, but it's given him a chance to kind of show what he has. You talk about Justin Jackson from Northwestern. My Hawkeyes know him all too well. But, they've kind of had the next man up mentality, but unfortunately just hasn't led to any wins. But both these teams are in the up and up. There are a few holes, but I think that, great futures.
Oh yeah, and you're looking for the Bills to kind of rebound mentally off that big Cardinals loss, right? That's
Sure.
what we're really looking. How do they respond to that after playing a tough team? They could be in a similar situation. Justin Herbert's shown that he's not going to back down. The offensive weapons arguably better in I wanted to say San Diego, but LA, the LA Chargers. When you're looking at Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Hunter Henry. You've got just weapons all over the field. Justin Herbert is not afraid to attack you vertically, which is where we've seen the Bills be weak at, is in that secondary getting attacked vertically. So I think it may pose a very
defense. It's zone.
And, sorry. I think Herbert's not going to be scared to attack that. And adversely, I think Josh Allen's going to have to win this game with not as many deep shots. I think he's going to have to actually read the defense of the Chargers, because that's kind of what they did to Drew Lock too. And Drew Lock struggled through 3 quarters. They took away the deep ball. There were things that were there. Drew Lock just missed it. I would trust Josh Allen to make that throw before I may trust Drew Lock. But that's essentially what they did, is they said, okay, we're going to take away your big shot plays, and we're going to make you drive down the field, and you're going to have to beat us. So that's stylistically what I would think that, and schematically what the Chargers would do.
I would definitely agree with you on that. But talking about other younger quarterbacks, we have the Packers versus Bears. And who's returning?
Could be a very controversial guy. It could be Mitchell Trubisky, right? Nothing's been said outright, but nonchalantly, slowly in the shadows, Mitchell Trubisky has been receiving all of the starter reps as they prepare, right? Mm-hmm. So this is kind of a big deal for the Bears. Nick Foles hasn't shown anything. And I mentioned this with you on this very show. It's not that Nick Foles is a bad quarterback. It's that offensive line isn't good, and Nick Foles can't create beyond what the play call is. The very fact that Mitch gives this offense life and gives it a chance to succeed. I don't think the Packers are playing well. I think they're kind of a fraudulent team. You look at some of their wins, they beat a practice squad 49ers team. That was Merry Christmas, Roger Goodell said to Aaron Rodgers. Here's a free win. I don't think that this Packers team is as good as what we've seen or what is out there, right? It's kind of like we're really thirsty looking for good football, right? And we're in the middle of the desert. And instead of finding a spring with water and beautiful women hanging around it, we're looking for good football and not water. We see a good football team, and it's the Packers. That's a mirage. They're not really a good football team. They have a good quarterback. They have a good wide receiver, and they have a good cornerback on the other side, Jerry Alexander. But completely,
let's be fair, they have a good running back unit. Too. Aaron Jones is a good running back.
Matt LaFleur doesn't know that. Let's send him a memo because he doesn't keep him on the field long enough to use him.
Exactly.
Right?
and they get Alan Lazard back.
That's going to be huge for him because he is a big body playmaker. Aaron Rodgers loves him. Expect a heavy dose of him. This Bears defense is legit, though. They love to tee off on Aaron Rodgers. They hate Aaron Rodgers. And I'm not talking about Bears previously. Spare me the Jay Cutler Bears talk. I'm talking about the past 3 years, Packers versus – these are the same Bears that blew up his knee and they drugged him up and he looked like he was smoking with Cheech and Chong when he came out of the locker room. His eyes were glazed and rolled back. I'm pretty sure this is the Bears team that broke his collarbone too, if I'm not mistaken.
That was the
Vikings.
He ran into Anthony Barr, so that's what happens when a guy walks into a bar.
Now the question's answered, right? So, yeah, I mean, this is a Bears team that loves to tee off. Obviously, I mentioned the knee injury. I think this is going to be a trap game for the Packers. And that may be the hottest take I've ever had on this show. I'm willing to put it out there. Am I saying it's going to be an absolute win for the Bears? No, I just think it's going to be close. It's not going to be a rout. I think it's going to be a tough defense going against an offense that doesn't handle tough defensive well. We saw what the Bucs did to these guys, right?
Yeah.
And I think we could see a similar situation. Maybe a 10-0, 14-0 early lead, especially if Mitch is under center, and we just see him chip away at that lead. Maybe rattle Aaron Rodgers if they can, because Aaron Rodgers. He can handle adversity and pressure, but he doesn't like all of it to hit him at once. Like if 2 drives fall apart, boom, boom, it almost seems like these Packers in the past couple of years, and you could attest to this, you're a Vikings fan. You pay attention to the Packers more than I do. It all kind of unravels for him, right? It's like, oh my God, then things are forced. Then he's making those forced throws. He's taking the deep shots, trying to get him back in the game. That's exactly what you want. You want Aaron Rodgers to feel rushed. Don't let Aaron Rodgers feel like he's in control of the situation.
Well, they haven't really played all that great of football since really that Saints win. I mean, they won by 7, but the first 2 weeks they won pretty handily against division opponents in the Vikings and the Lions. They kind of had a little bit of a scare at first against the Falcons. They got destroyed by the Bucs, who haven't been playing very good football themselves. You know, they got a win against the Texans, but I mean, it's the Texans this year. Lost to the Vikings at home. Win against the 49ers, but the 49ers were completely depleted. A nail-biter against the Jaguars, and then they were up against the Colts, I mean, pretty handily. And then the Colts came back and won it in overtime. So, I mean, they're not playing the best football, and the problem is it's the same problem that they've had the last few years that it's driven Packer fans crazy. One, the defense isn't playing that great of football. Fine. But the biggest reason is who's their number 2 guy? I mean, I like Allen Lazard. I had to give him a shout out because he's from Iowa, so I had to do that. But, I mean, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, I mean, when I think of him, I think there'll be a game or 2 a year where he has like 8 catches for 100 yards. But you think about all the missed statistics that he has, missed points, because he'll be going down the field on like a post and just drop a wide open pass, and then you get the classic Aaron Rodgers just glare at him. They don't have a number 2 guy, and it's great that they found themselves a power back in A.J. Dillon. I like him out of Boston College, but how much is he doing for that team now? You know what I mean? If you feel that the quarterback is the next franchise guy in a couple of years, fine, take him. But what are you doing with the, to help Aaron now? And to be honest, they haven't helped him all. They had the trade deadline where I think if they pick up any of the Texans receivers, I know a lot of the talk was with Fuller, but Stills or really any of those guys, it could have helped Aaron Rodgers out, but they didn't. And I think that's ultimately why they're struggling, because if Devontae Adams isn't open, which Aaron can throw him open. But, I mean, Devontae Adams had a good game against Minnesota. I think he had like 2 or 3 touchdowns in the loss. Yeah, he had all 3 of their touchdowns and the 2-point conversion, and it still wasn't enough.
Right.
And they haven't been able to stop anybody as far as rushing the ball is concerned. And if I'm the Bears, it's kind of like, okay, I mean, regardless of who our quarterback is, hopefully if David Montgomery's healthy, let's have us a game running the ball. And as we talked about with Carson Wentz, let's whoever the quarterback, it doesn't matter if it's Foles or Trubisky, let's not worry about necessarily taking the shots right now, but let's just get him, at the beginning of the game, his first 10 passes. Let's try to go, 8 for 10, 7 of 10, and no turnovers and no sacks. What can we do to start him off with 7 or 8 completions out of the first 10 passes? Just get confidence in not only the quarterback, but the offense and the team as a whole.
Yeah, and when you're talking about the number 2 problems for Green Bay, I'd like to point out that they cut a guy by the name of Travis Fulgham, that a team we mentioned earlier. The Eagles picked him up, and now he's worked his way into a starting position.
Exactly.
So it begs the question, okay, the last few years, okay, Packers fans love to blame Mike McCarthy, okay? You want to blame – that's fine. He's in charge. He's making those decisions. So you don't have a number 2 with him. That's fine. Blame McCarthy. Okay, you go back to last year and this year, is it a fair assessment to say, okay, they're not drafting these guys, but they are finding some talented people that they're just not giving the opportunity to? I think that's a fair question to ask. I mean, if Travis Fulgham's on your practice squad, he never got a look, but now all of a sudden he's balling. Obviously, we hear this song and dance in the NFL all the time. Raheem Mostert is a perfect example of star 49ers running back. Oh, this guy cut it. This team cut him. He was practice squad with the Ravens. Now he's here. Okay, I understand. You can't find every diamond in the rough. But at some point, whenever you look at the struggles to find a consistent wide receiver too, you have to ask, what's going on in that wide receiver room? Well, what's the wide receiver coach doing that he can't find somebody? He can't produce somebody that other teams are finding. So I think that's a fair question to pose as well.
Yeah, right now I'm looking on the last year's Packers team because I know they had a receiver that Aaron Rodgers really liked. They let go of Geronimo Allison, but he wasn't the guy I'm talking about. Who the heck is this guy? It was.
Could it be Equanimeous St. Brown?
No, it was. Oh, here we go. Jake Kumaro out of Wisconsin Whitewater, 6'4", 209. Rodgers loved this receiver. He was talking him up in the offseason, and all of a sudden he gets cut. And, in 2019, 12 catches, 219 yards, and a touchdown. It's building off of 2018 where he had 8 catches, 105 yards, and a touchdown. So it's not like he was, necessarily a good number 2 for Devontae Adams, but he was a guy that was productive. If you would have meshed him with Alan Lazard, I think they had Darius Shepard last year, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, kind of rotating your receivers through and just keeping Devontae Adams on the field. You find a little bit of everything or something that each receiver likes to do that you can incorporate into your offense. Well, now it's just kind of like I said, if Devontae Adams isn't open, let's check it down to Aaron Jones because I don't trust any of these people.
Yeah, absolutely. You almost kind of see the same problem in the Baltimore Ravens right now, right? You're seeing a regression in Lamar. Who's he got to throw to?
I was actually right now, the rerun of the Titans and Baltimore game is on, and right before we were watching this, I was thinking, Hollywood Brown, man, where's he been at? And right as I was thinking that, it was showing a rerun of it was like a crossing route or like an in, and he had it in his hands, just completely dropped it. And then it showed a statistic that the first, I want to say 6-7 games, he was averaging 4 catches for 60-some yards. Decent, for sure. But now he's averaging 2 catches for 20 to 30 yards, which isn't going to get the job done, especially as a first round wide receiver. They got Dez Bryant. I think he had 4 catches for 40, 50-some yards, which, you mesh that with some of the other guys like Devin Duvernay and Andrews and some of these other guys that, they need to step up. It's respectable, but man, also another statistic, the further you go down on the Ravens depth chart, as far as running backs are concerned, the more yards they have. Their leading rusher, at least going into that Titans game, was Gus Edwards with 310 yards. Well, their leading rusher is Lamar Jackson. I'm just talking about just pure running backs. Gus Edwards at 310 yards, and then it's J.K. Dobbins with 290 or something like that, and then it's Mark Ingram, which is great. You combine all those guys up, and it's about 1,000 yards, and then you add in Lamar Jackson, it's about 1,500 yards rushing. But the problem is, I hate using this term, but I think there might be garbage time stats. You're able to run the ball, let's say, for a field goal drive for 40 yards, but end the drive in the end zone. So yeah, you're racking up those rushing yards, but it doesn't really tell the whole story. Are you getting the ball in the end zone? Which they are not. Their defense, for the most part, has played well this season, but just I think Derrick Henry has their number, especially in overtime. You don't really want to be playing against Derrick Henry for 4 quarters, let alone overtime, because the later in the game it gets, the more the 6'4", 6'5", 240 pound Derrick Henry starts to wear in your defense a little bit, and I think that showed. I think that the Titans are a team that are built for the playoffs. They're not, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think they're top 5 on defense, or if they are, they're very sneaky top 5. But the way they're able to run the ball consistently and better as the year goes on, they're like a blueprint of what you would want in a playoff team. Ryan Tannehill isn't a guy that's going to throw the ball 50 times a game, but he's a guy who can manage the game. So, I mean, and at least in this Ravens-Steelers matchup, what I'm looking at is, can the Ravens bounce back? And if they bounce back, will the Steelers finally look human? They're the only undefeated team left in the league, and Big Ben's having a really good year. Their defense is playing really good football. Again, going back to when they traded for Minkah Fitzpatrick, that defense went from good to great. And they're really showing it this year, even with their injury to, I believe it's Devin Bush. I mentioned on this show that they were able to get Avery Williamson from the Jets, who is not Devin Bush by any means. But he's definitely a guy who you can rely on to play that middle, and I think it's paid dividends for him. And, I mean, at least for the Steelers, I mean, here's the thing. You never want to lose. I mean, if they could go 16-0, they're going to want to go 16-0. But even if they were to lose this game, they're still so far in their division that the only thing it really hurts them with is playoff seeding with Kansas City potentially down the road. But, I mean, I think the Steelers are going to win this. I think that the Ravens right now are going through a slump, and I think the biggest problems are O-line. I think that a shout out to my Iowa boy, Marshall Yanda. I think that they really miss his not only his play, because he was still playing good football when he retired, but just his leadership. I think they're so young along the offensive line. I mean, Ronnie Stanley going down obviously doesn't help either. Thank God he was able to sign his extension, so at least he got paid. But that really hurt him. So right now I'm thinking the Steelers are going to win this game. But if the Ravens were to bounce back, it wouldn't really surprise me a whole lot. But I think it'll be a good classic AFC run the ball, play defense type of game.
Well, I agree. I do think the Steelers win this game. I don't know if the Ravens have the offensive firepower to do it, pull it off. But you look at the games where the Steelers have struggled, right? Such as the Cowboys against the Ravens the first time, against the Titans. You look at these close games they've had, right? It's their inability to run the football and establish consistent offense that way. You don't really want Big Ben throwing it 50 times a game. And it's not the fact that Big Ben can't, but it's the fact that, number one, Big Ben's older. Number two, you're exposing Big Ben to more shots over the course of a game, over the course of a season, right? How healthy is Ben going to be going into the playoffs? That's something we need to ask ourselves. Football's a long sport. A guy like Ben Roethlisberger that's taken that many shots, has that many bumps and bruises, has those many scars, right? It's going to wear on him. We want to preserve Ben to make this run, because I think this is a true contender in the AFC. I think this is a team that could pick off the Chiefs if needed. And they're only going to do that running the ball. You're not going to win a shootout with the Chiefs. That's what the Chiefs want. Are you kidding me? They want you to mess up. They want you to go 3 and out. They want to turn the ball over. They want to score and flip the script. Oh, now you're pressured that you want to score? Okay, throw it deep to Chase Claypool twice, miss it. Try to throw a screen to Juju, 3 and out again. Perfect. Give me the ball. Deep bomb to Tyreek Hill. 14-0. 2 drives. That's what the Chiefs want. Mm-hmm. I think the Steelers have the defense you can ask for. I think they have the passing attack and weapons and offensive line you can ask for. I don't think James Conner is playing up to his potential of what he should and helping this team win. We're seeing lots of drops. We're seeing a lack of explosive plays from him. We're not really seeing Benny Snell or Rodney McLeod get the ball enough for them to prove themselves as capable runners either. And I do think the depth, the loss of a true running back threat out of the backfield is kind of hurting the Steelers. And if they do lose, at any point, I think that could be attributed to that. Because, at the end of the game, like you said, garbage time stats. Well, James Conner had 65 yards rushing. He had 70. I don't care what happened the last 2 drives. I care what happened the first 3 quarters, right? Mm-hmm. I don't care what happened whenever they ran the ball 3 plays in a row. I care what happened whenever it was a meaningful snap on 3rd and inches. He got stuffed. That's what we need to look at more so than the final box score, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah. I think that, they need to find one of those running backs needs to play good football. But I think, they finally have a pretty deep receiving core, something they haven't had in a while. Because, obviously there's Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool's been having one heck of a season. But then you also have to look at guys like Washington and Deontay Johnson, and also the tight end Eric Ebron is having a respectable year. I know he's throughout his career it's kind of been up and down. He had I think a decent year in Detroit, then that really good year in Indianapolis. So I think that he's kind of due for a good year, which he's had an all right year. But yeah, if they want to play playoff football, they're going to have to be able to run the football, and it's going to have to be one of those guys on the roster, because there's really not a whole lot of help as far as picking somebody up. And now's not the time of year to pick somebody up. It's the time of year where one of your guys just needs to step up, and if they can't, well then the playoffs are about guys stepping up and making plays, and they have the defense for it. They have the veteran quarterback who's been there, albeit it's been a while. But, he's also had to compete against the era of Peyton Manning, the era of Tom Brady. So, he's been there, done that. It's been a while. But it's that running game that, and it doesn't have to necessarily be 100-yard games, but you get 60 yards from one guy, another 30 from your backup, and maybe another, 15 to 20 from another guy. You're able to rotate through your guys to where you're still it's just as good as pounding the rock with Derrick Henry 30 times a game. You start to wear on the defense, and it keeps them honest.
Well, and I think, like you mentioned too, playoff football, somebody at home's wondering, well, why is that term getting thrown around? Okay, a good example of what playoff football is to say, all right, I've got the ball last. I'm not going to risk my opponent getting it again and winning, a la what the Raiders had to go through with the Chiefs. They scored. That was great, but you left too much time on the clock, okay? If you got a confident running game, which the Raiders do, they just were put in a bad situation where they had to throw the ball and score, right? You get in that situation and you say, okay, there's 5 minutes left on the clock. We're on our 30-yard line. We're going to go 70 yards, and we're going to take up 4.5 minutes, right? We're going to make you burn your timeouts. We're
preferably all 5 minutes, depending on who you're playing.
Right. You just, and you want to do that if possible, but you want to make it as difficult as possible on the other team. So that's great that the Steelers have the ability to throw the ball in a tight situation, but that's what I'm concerned with. Okay, you get the ball with 5 minutes to go in the playoffs. You're playing the Kansas City Chiefs. Can you milk that clock? I don't know if they can.
All right, so that should do it for this week's edition of the Coach's Corner. Don't forget to check out our website, eastwestfootballnetwork.com. Additionally, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Any comments we get in the comment section, any questions we get, we'll answer on the show for you. And thanks again for joining in, and we'll see you next week.
See you guys.